The NCAA announced a new 8-year broadcast deal with ESPN last week for over $900 million, with women's college sports making up the bulk of the deal. While women's athletics have traditionally been on the sidelines of sports media, in recent years they have scored some big wins with mainstream audiences, effectively tripling their coverage in the process. Stephanie Sy dives into the rise of women's sports and the fandom propelling them forward.
So I was at this championship game, 2017.
Minnesota resident Jillian Hiscock is a diehard fan of women's sports.
I'm a huge WNBA fan and women's basketball fan in general, but I follow everything.
But catching a women's basketball game at her local sports bar proved complicated.
So many women's sports fans' experience has been walking into a bar, looking around at the 20-plus TVs, and knowing that it is very likely the game you want to watch is not on TV.
That is, until she took a trip to Portland, Oregon, and walked into the Sports Bra, the world's first women's sports bar.
It was literally transformative walking in and just knowing that this is a place where my fandom is celebrated.
It's not a sports bar for women. It's a bar for women's sports.
Owner Jenny Nguyen opened the Bra in 2022. There, she maintains the sports bar aesthetics, but keeps the TVs tuned only to women's sports coverage. But keeping those screens filled with women's sports took a game plan.
If it was just what was on TV and what was on cable, there would not be enough to open the sports bra. So I reached out to some of the bigger women's sports media brands that do their own YouTube channels, that kind of thing.
Welcome to the Just Women's Sports Super Show.
While traditional broadcast media has often treated women's sports as a bench warmer, new media has given it more play.
Streaming platforms have completely changed the game with respect to women's media coverage.
By including all the ways fans now consume sports, media and marketing researcher Shelley Passara says women's sports grew from just 4% to 15% of all sports coverage in the past 4 years.
It is amazing. And yes, it's triple where we've been before, but it is only 15%.
When we look back, we'll look at 2023 as a watershed moment for women's sports.
The rise in coverage comes as no surprise to veteran sports journalist Christine Brennan. It's the fruition of a landmark piece of legislation known as Title IX, signed by Richard Nixon in 1972, giving women and girls the right to equal opportunity in sports in publicly funded schools.
We are now in the beginning of the next 50 years of Title IX, and makes complete sense that we would be seeing this explosion in women's sports.
Brennan herself was a high school athlete just after Title IX was passed, but she didn't get to enjoy the benefits as the new rules took years to be enforced.
I'm honored to have been kind of at the very beginning, just getting that first glimpse of what would come in the decades that followed.
And what followed are big, headline-stealing moments, like the showdown between Iowa's Caitlin Clark and Louisiana State University's Angel Reese in the NCAA basketball final. Katie Ledecky beating Michael Phelps for most individual world swimming titles. And Simone Biles' comeback to become the most decorated gymnast in history.
Today's the greatest day to be a woman in sports until tomorrow. But the mainstream sports media has not caught up.
While few women's sports receive primetime slots, their ratings have continuously exceeded expectations. The 2023 WNBA finals were the most watched in 20 years. The National Women's Soccer League saw a 20% increase in TV ratings this season. Women's college volleyball is continuously shattering its own viewership ratings, and that NCAA women's basketball final, it averaged 9.9 million viewers, more than the 5-game average for last year's World Series.
The rise of social media has been a fabulous turn of events for women's sports and women's sports fans, because in the old days, it just wouldn't be covered.
Things that live rent-free in my head include when Angel City beat the Thorns 5-1.
18-year-old Ellie Carson is active on TikTok, where she posts exclusively about her favorite sport, women's soccer.
I just posted a video and then a lot of people were commenting, and I was like blown away because I really didn't have other people in my life who liked women's soccer. And I was like, oh my God, there's other people.
Carson was first drawn to the sport during the 2019 World Cup. when the U.S. women's team was campaigning to earn as much as their male counterparts.
It definitely draws you to a team when they stand for more than just the sport that they play.
I love all things women's basketball. We can be competitors, like we can talk junk.
For South Carolina resident Jaquinda Jackson, watching female ballers is empowering, and for her sons, enlightening.
Showing two little boys that women can and will compete, it diminishes that whole stereotype of women are like just one way.
They're playing at such a high level. It makes it really easy and really entertaining to watch.
Brent Rowe has been a sports fan his whole life, but more recently he became one of the men who make up roughly half the audience for women's sports. He's now a season ticket holder for his local WNBA team, the Las Vegas Aces, and a fan of their championship-winning A'ja Wilson.
The Aces were the first professional sports team to bring a championship to the city and the first ones to have a parade on the Las Vegas Strip. How cool is that? I'm rocking an A'ja Wilson jersey when I'm walking down the street.
Men like Rowe represent a sea change for women's sports and are key to its growth, says Brennan.
These are Title IX males who were raised very differently than their fathers or grandfathers, and they will be fighting to make sure there's advertising for women's sports.
While college sporting events are, thanks to Title IX, split evenly between men and women, professional sports are dominated by men's leagues. But Jillian Hiscock is banking on that changing.
In here we'll have all kinds of memorabilia, art on the walls.
Inspired by her visit to the Sports Bra in Portland, she's getting ready to open a bar of their own, the Midwest's first female sports bar in Minneapolis.
I was that young girl athlete that never really had representation in any kind of professional sports, in sports bars, and the ability to really expose our younger generation to these women athletes is really important to me.
A bar of their own will open its doors this March in what is expected to be another banner year for women's sports. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Stephanie Sy.
Later this evening,